podcast is a chat with Sara Robinson, recorded in St Augustine's Centre for Asylum Seekers and Refugees in Halifax. It was absolutely fascinating and a real eye-opener to go round. It's like a sort of microcosm of society with every trade you can think of represented there among the people who use it, and who then pass on their knowledge and skills to others. And a major part of it is to be able to speak English. If you can't do that, then you're pretty stuck at an awful lot of things, including advice. So it was really interesting. And Sarah's a lovely woman, but one among many people who offer their time and their skills there.
That's Sara Robinson, the Centre Director. Yeah, we met some really interesting people. We're talking to Saba, who's a master tailor.
Yeah.
Who was mending clothes and making bags.
And it made a suit for somebody. It was just amazing.
Yes. So they'd laid out some tailors' tables. I'm not quite sure what the terminology is.
And they make bags, and they're considering selling them to help raise some money for the centre. And there was also a guy who's a boxer who runs a boxing club. And that's apparently really popular.
Yes, he was shaped like a boxer as well.
He was, yeah.
He's a really nice lad, but he was doing reception. That's one of the two buildings they've got there.
Yeah, we talked to a lot of people who aren't included in the interview, but gave us a flavour of what it's like, and they were all happy to chat, weren't they?
Yes, I think we must go back and have a more in-depth chat with one or two of them.
Yeah,
at some point. But the food.
Oh, the food, yeah, fantastic.
The food was marvellous as well, wasn't it? Everyone's welcome to go there for food, apparently.
And it was a vegan day, which Sarah admitted isn't that popular. Lots of people love their meat, and they said, "Is that it? No meat?" But you, as a veggie.
Well, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But interestingly, the chefs who were making the food came from Eritrea, Togo, Sudan, and Hebden Bridge.
Yes. Yeah.
So, what an amazing set of ingredients and menu they must be able to put together between them.
And they're always, they use things that, that don't, non-perishables. So, they can keep them stocked up, and they get donations of like chickpeas and rice and dried goods, and just make delicious stuff from them, which is fantastic.
Yes, and they have musicians there too, which interested me greatly. And we've actually had a couple of bands from there at the Hebden Bridge Folk Roots Festival over the years. Because it's a fantastic resource, really, when you think there's people from 80 different countries.
Yeah.
The incredible range of skills. Rather patiently, I'm sure in some cases impatiently, waiting to be assessed for refugee status and to be allowed to stay in the country.
Yeah.
But the centre provides support and advice on migration, and also just how various systems work, as well as language.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is our chat with Sara Robinson, Centre Director. So we're talking to Sara Robinson in the St Augustine Centre.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a really basic thing. You have refugees here, asylum seekers from all around the world. How did they come to be in Halifax? Did they kind of apply to emigrate? How does it work?
It's a really good question. So they find their way to the UK however they can. And obviously that's often on our news. So we pick up bits. And the truth is that people are fleeing war and persecution for a whole host of reasons, which we can get into. And they have to leave. And they find those of them, and it's a very small proportion, that choose to make it to the UK. It's about 1% of the world's displaced people actually make it to the UK, and it's usually because they speak the language, or we have a colonial history that means they identify with England, or they've got relatives here, and they'll come however they can get here. And obviously we hear a lot about small boats.
Well, yes, that's something that's on the news all the time, isn't it?
It is. And that is, it's not a safe route and it's not a legal route, but there are no legal routes.
Okay.
The only nationalities of late that have been allowed to come here, obviously Ukrainians. And there's a couple of very small schemes. There's one for Hong Kong residents. And there have been schemes in the past for people from Syria, Afghanistan. There was a scheme, but actually the numbers of people it brought over was tiny. So most of the people coming on the small boats are from Afghanistan and Syria and Sudan. But they make it here, and when they arrive, either by boat or however else they've come, they have to hand themselves in to the authorities. And at that point, they are given an initial interview and they're held in detention. And then they are placed somewhere by the Home Office. And that's literally wherever there's room. So they don't know where they're going. So the people that are in Calderdale are the people that the Home Office have placed here.
So there might have, part of an incentive might be that, you know, Uncle so-and-so lives in London.
Yeah.
But we're 200 miles away from London.
That's very common. Yeah. And if you're then in the asylum system, which often you're in for years before a decision is made, if you're placed into a hotel, which is not at all what people want, you get £8 a week to live on. You do get food.
£8 a week?
Yeah. So if you want to go and visit Uncle in London, you've no chance. And also you're not allowed to leave the accommodation overnight without special dispensation. Some people are placed into houses which are rented, and they have a little bit more freedom, and they're living on £45 a week because they have to buy everything, including food. But that's pretty tough amount of money to live on. And that's where we come in.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the centre here must be a lifeline for people who are given so little.
Yeah, and you've had a look around now, so you can see that it's sort of co-run with people. So those people have got so many skills and they've got a lot of time on their hands because they're not allowed to work. They give back, so they teach English, they mend bikes, they mend IT, they do reception, they cook food, whatever it is. And together we just help create this place of, like Saba said, home, like family.
Yeah.
And we offer a range of things. We offer immigration advice and support with welfare issues. And then we also offer sort of more quality of life stuff like the English classes, a little bit of training. We help people navigate life in Calderdale. And it is as simple as, you know, how do you post a letter? This is a post box.
Yeah.
Or here's a local park that's free that you can use. We also have a charity shop downstairs, so we call it the free shop, where people can get donated clothes. We try and give people phones. Often their phones are taken off them when they arrive, and it's a real lifeline.
Really?
That has happened. It's happening less now because there's been a real fight back against it. But yeah, it can happen and does quite often. People arrive only in the clothes that they're wearing, so they can use our free shop for that. And then we have a lot of arts and sports-based activities as well.
Yeah, when we came in, someone was playing football on an Xbox, weren't they?
Yes.
Drag you away because you were watching it.
I know, even watch football on an Xbox.
but yeah, it was a nice atmosphere and people relaxing and doing.
Well, it's good because it's call it a chill out room, and people seem quite chilled there. Somebody with a child, playing on the piano or banging on the piano as much as anything else. People drawing, people sort of tea and coffee making facilities in the corner. And it's I used to run community centres, and I know it's a fantastic resource. One of the things I used to say in terms of people saying, well, is there any point to this? And I said, well, you can't measure how many people haven't had nervous breakdowns because of this facility. And it is not everything is measurable.
That's so true. Sometimes it's hard to make the case, but we just know, don't we, that mental health issues are 5 times higher in people who are fleeing war and persecution for obvious reasons.
Is that all? I'd have thought it'd be more than that.
But then there's a lot of people in Britain also with mental health issues, aren't there? So
true.
it's like,
and that's on the increase as well.
Yeah, but their ability to access support is really minimised. So we've got a guy now who works for an organisation called Solace. They provide therapeutic support for people fleeing war and persecution, and he's located in that other building. I should have introduced you to him. So he's there. If we're worried about people, which often happens, if we really think they're not coping, we'll refer them to him, and he'll help either get them access to some therapy or like work with them to just give them some coping mechanisms and encourage them to get involved, like in our music group or art or.
I've noticed, obviously I've noticed that, football sessions and there's yoga and various sort of social sort of sessions. I mean, I've known a couple of doctors who've said, if they could just prescribe people free access to this local sports centre, it would do them the world of good, mentally as well as physically.
Totally. And that's what we try and, what we've really built up here is we always used to be a lot more about crisis, immigration crisis or welfare crisis, and now what we're doing a lot more of is general quality of life, well-being. What do you do each day? How do you build relationships? How do you spend your time? How are you looking after your body and your brain? Because that's what keeps people sane. And we know that, don't we, for ourselves?
Yes.
And it's the same for everybody else.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you've got quite, obviously, a lot of people, you think from 80 different countries, you said, use the centre, and a lot of them have brought their skills, and we've just spoken to someone who's like repairing sort of computers and mobile phones, and we've spoken to sort of you've got the beauticians and a whole range of things. But there's the local people born and brought up in this country who are sort of, there's quite a variety of them coming along and bringing skills in to help as well.
So we have 160 volunteers at any one time, and about half of those are people seeking asylum. And the rest are those local people. And we wouldn't exist without them. And they do all sorts of things, casework, reception, similar roles. Indy, who you met today, cooking, gardening, painting, sit on our board. They're a trustee. Yeah.
So presumably everybody isn't granted asylum who's applied for it. So do you help people to appeal that or to apply in the first place?
Well,
how does it work?
So when they hand themselves in, when they arrive on British soil, they're then in the asylum and they make their claim.
Right.
They don't need us to do that.
Right.
They're in the system, and that's why they get housed, because they're in a system. And we have to do that under international law. The laws that were made after the Second World War, that never again would we see people not allowed to move through countries for safety. We're signed up to the Refugee Convention. But they go through an asylum claim. Our role is to help them understand it, because it's really complex. Help them prepare. And if they get refused, then where appropriate, we will help people lodge what's called a fresh claim or an appeal. Because often the system, they're trying to navigate a system that's quite tough to understand. They might not have access to all the evidence that they're being asked to provide, because when you have to flee, you go, right? You don't have time to find your passport if you've got one. You don't have time to pack. You literally go. So you're not going to have with you the documents to prove why you're fleeing. So there's a lot of work that has to be done to make the case. But we do help people with appeals and fresh claims where it's appropriate to do that.
Right, thanks. Yeah.
And how about you, Sarah? What's your role here?
I'm centre director, which means I find the money to make it happen, with the board, set the strategy, overseeing the team, make sure they're okay, because sometimes this work can be quite hard. And I began here as a volunteer, so I was a befriender 8 years ago. I was a befriender for a Nigerian family. And then I started doing a bit more, and I thought, this is an amazing place. God, this is like full of people from around the world, and there's a really lovely atmosphere here. And then I joined the board. And at that time, the centre financially was struggling, like many charities. So I ended up doing quite a bit of fundraising, and it didn't have anyone leading it at that point. So then we created the job description, and it was a real shock to me, but I thought, I'm quite interested. It's a total change because I've worked in the arts for 30 years before that. I think I'd like to have a shot at running this place because it's the only I've never applied for a job before. I've always been freelance, but I thought I love this place, and I asked the board if I could, and stepped down as a trustee, and got the job. And when we're coming up, that was 4 years ago. I started a week before lockdown, so obviously that was a
good timing, Sarah.
Shift, new sector and lockdown. But in a way, despite everything that lockdown brought, which was a lot of difficulties for a lot of people, it meant that for me, I could help create changes that might have otherwise taken longer because everything had changed anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So we had to sort of... And the reason I work here is we'll all remember that picture of that child washed up on a beach.
Oh, yeah.
And I just thought, why are we living in a world where this happens? And that is what led me to find this place. And I just think that everyone deserves to live in safety wherever they are. I don't think we are bound by borders. I think we're global citizens of the world, and I know why people flee because I work with them. And so when I read things in papers that says otherwise, it breaks my heart because I would never want to be in the situation the people in this place are in. No way. Nobody leaves their home and their family and everything they've known unless they don't have a choice.
You have to be completely desperate, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Are there some exceptions to that rule? Maybe, but almost everybody that applies for asylum, I think it's something like 83%, might be even higher, of people that apply get it because it's indisputable.
Yes. And there are so many, 80 different countries. Yeah. There are so many trouble spots, seems like a sort of trivial piece of language to describe what goes on in some places. Yeah, but there's so many people who sort of like in Afghanistan worked as interpreters and various other ways for the British and Americans, and are now hiding and trying to escape from what's going on there, from the mess that's been left behind. Yeah. And that's only one of those places. Yeah. You mentioned some of the South African countries. Personally, no idea what's going on there.
South America or Central America?
Central America.
Yeah.
And you can't, even if you're interested in global politics, you can't really keep up with what's going on in 80 different countries. So it's quite astonishing. Personally, I remember being about 12 or 13, and in Biafra, the Biafran War was on, and we were sort of encouraged by Blue Peter to sort of raise funds to sort of feed Biafran kids, and then discovering that British companies are selling arms to the people who are shooting at those Biafran kids, thinking there's something.
That's one of the things.
At that age, just thinking there's something very wrong with the world.
It always strikes me that quite a lot of the people that come here, and that's why they come here. This country has had an involvement in the history of their country, for good or for bad. England's had its tentacles right across the world, and this is part of the result.
And it's not all bad. My dad spent his teenage years in the early 1940s fighting against the Nazis. Britain is responsible for an awful lot of stuff that's gone wrong, but an awful lot of good as well.
And I think people
forget that.
People sometimes come here they come here with a sense that England is and they're right to some extent, a lovely, kind, warm country that they've learnt about growing up, or they've been taught the language, or it's in their history, or, you know, England has quite a reputation worldwide, doesn't it? Quite a positive reputation. But I just want to make sure that there's a couple of really key facts that you wouldn't think of if you believed what we read in the paper. But I wondered if you knew, so everyone that's ever come to the UK as a refugee or an asylum seeker that is alive today, what percentage of our population that they make up?
Wow. Yeah.
Very small, I would guess, but I'm not sure. If you push me, it would be sort of 1 or 2%.
Yeah, it's 0.6%.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and yet we're led to believe that...
And yet it's the hottest issue in politics
overall
today, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're talking about 0.6% of our population. It's tiny numbers, and there's 80 million displaced people in the world right now. 1% of those make it to the UK. In Europe, we're the 17th, like there's 16 other countries that take more people than we do.
Yeah.
So what we really welcome is good quality second-hand shoes and clothes for all ages. Got loads of baby stuff. We don't need baby stuff.
Yeah.
But adults and children, that would be great. If anyone has any phones they don't use that they know are in working order, or laptops, we'll gladly take them off your hands. And we're always looking for regular donors. You know, we've got people signed up even at £5 a month. You can find the button on our website. And we've got an exciting challenge coming up in the run-up to Refugee Week, where we're going to do an appeal and ask people to run, walk, cycle, abseil, swim, whatever they want, and collectively to build 24,000 miles, which is the circumference of the globe. And we're going to try and raise £24,000 with match funding. So we'll let you know when that's a bit clearer.
Yeah.
Okay, just tell us what the website, what the web address is.
If you just search St Augustine's Halifax, you'll find us.
Right. Okay.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. Fascinating discussion.